Hey, and welcome back. Today I just want to paint this little children's book illustration that I'm doing for my son. This is not going to be anything that I'm ever going to put on the market or any commercial enterprise of this. This is just for me and just for my little boy. And the reason that is the design is totally stolen from this awesome artist named Ryan Lang. He did this great illustration of a mouse guard and this little mice kind of charging across this field in this kind of fall setting, and I was really captivated by it, and it really fits with the vibe I wanted for my son's room. So I thought I would just do some kind of a blatant rip-off of the idea, but I'm just going to use rabbits instead. The reason I want to make a video using it though is because it shows a lot of the principles that I wanted to talk about. As I started making these videos, there's so many things that I want to say, so many things I want to kind of get to, and one of the things I want to talk about is just that art is about learning to see. It's not really about fine motor control or learning a different technique for holding a pencil or whatever. I think from a technical standpoint, your ability to draw curved lines and straight lines at the age of probably 4 or 5 years old was sufficient to be able to draw anything that has ever been drawn. And so it's not really our fine motor control or our dexterity that gets in our way. It's our brain. It's the way that we think about the world, which is our obstacle. And that's an exciting prospect because I 100% believe that that's the truth. And because I've watched my son, who's just 2.5 years old, and he can draw a pretty wide array of line. He can make a huge variety of marks already, and to the degree that without too much more fine motor control development or dexterity, he will be able to do from like a kinesthetic standpoint anything you could ask him to do. And he's just 2.5. So what is it that makes the artist an artist? Well, it's definitely not their ability to hold a pencil or what they can, how they can move a pencil on the paper. It's what they see in the world and how they translate what they see onto the paper or onto the canvas or into the sculpture or whatever. So that's exciting because that means the battle we have to become artists is not about some mystery skill that we may or may not be able to attain, like an athlete. Like some of us will never dunk a basketball just because we don't have the natural ability to jump that high or to be that tall. And I think it is a huge and exciting gift that art is not like that. And it definitely is not like that. It is not a thing that is rooted down or by talent or this idea of being gifted or something. No, it's just a way of studying and looking at the world, and it's a way of opening one's senses through that process. And so being an artist is, yes, there is a mechanical, biomechanical, body mechanical kind of component to it, which affords us the chance to actually create physical objects, which is what art is, is this ability to create a physical experience that another can enjoy, or at least witness. And yeah, that's part of it, but that's not the obstacle, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So what are we talking about when we talk about learning to see? Well, here I am, my mentor is doing a workshop in Colorado Springs, and I'm at this workshop with a bunch of really good artists, and I'm the youngest person in there just because my grandmother's amazing and keeps dragging me to all these workshops with these really, really accomplished artists. And this guy, Ray Vinella, became my mentor, and he was someone I worked with all throughout my childhood. Every summer, even would drive down to his house in his studio down in New Mexico, and he would let us stay there and just paint with him, and it was amazing. He was truly like the reason I'm the artist I am today. But hanging out in a workshop with him, and one of the ways that we kind of would work out this, that he would come and do these workshops so far from home from him, was that we would always give him a place to stay. And so he didn't have to fuss with hotels or anything. My parents had a nice house with some extra room, and he had a lot of, his own space. He could kind of be his own person there and not have to worry about getting in anyone else's way. And I left it because he was always around. So we'd have workshop time, hang out, paint all day long, literally all day long. And then at the end, around dinner time, we'd pack up and come home, and I get to hang out with him some more. So for me, it was just a huge, huge blessing. And this one night, we were watching the X-Files, which was on TV that night, and watching X-Files with him was as eye-opening as making a painting in his presence, because the way he watched X-Files was the way he painted, was the way he lived his whole life. He was always just asking questions all the time. Here's a 60-year-old guy who's been a professional artist his entire life. He worked for Disney. He worked directly with Walt Disney. He made movie posters for Mary Poppins. He did all kinds of stuff. He did Aquaman cartoons before all that, and when he was just right out of university, and on and on and on, just right out of art school. He did it all, and he was a super accomplished fine artist and made an excellent living on it. And here's why. So I'm sitting with him, and he said, "Oh my gosh, do you see that textural background behind Mulder's face and the character, the actor's face?" And he describes all of the set design as though he was there planning the whole thing. And for me, as a 15 or 16-year-old kid, I thought the scene looked nice. It had an aesthetic quality, and it really emphasized, the viewer's gaze on the actor and stuff. But never did I break it down to the degree that he did in just that one sort of glancing comment as we're watching the show. And then again, he would do it, and again and again and again and again. And as we're watching the show, the whole thing starts to get transformed for me, and I realize that an artist is an artist is an artist all the time. Never does that part of their brain turn off. And so his design sensibility and the way that he used and understood and interpreted the visual language was just amazing to me. And I went to bed thinking about it, just thinking, wow, everything is different. He's opened a whole new world to me. A world that I always knew was there, and a world that I lived in already. I was very much tuned into that myself, but not at all to the degree that he was. It was profound, the stuff he was talking about. I'd go to bed, wake up the next morning, go out and grab my cereal, and I see outside Ray is sitting out there having whatever he's having for breakfast, his eggs or cereal or whatever, and on the back patio, and he's looking up at the trees in such a way that I grabbed my cereal from the kitchen table, walked out to the back patio, and I looked at him, and I looked at the trees, and I looked at him, and I looked at the trees, and I said, "Ray, what do you see?" It was as though it was like the Sixth Sense style, like you'd seen a ghost. Like he was so entranced by what he was looking at. And without looking away, he just says, Daniel, do you see it?" And I look at him, and I say, "I see what?" He says, the warm and rich soil beneath that blue spruce. I'm like, yeah. He says, "Do you see how it's reflecting up into the lower part of the branches and changing the color temperature of all the downward facing parts of the branches and all the downward and all the leaves coming off those branches?" And I go, "Well, yeah, actually, I do see that. That is amazing. Oh my gosh. How did I not notice that before, right?" And he goes, "Oh, Daniel, do you see? And I'm like, what? Just wondering, what is he going to show me now? And he says, "Do you see the cool skylight from this morning light, and the way that it's, especially the higher up the tree you go, all the upward facing parts of the branches and the leaves, how cool they are from the reflected light from the skylight bouncing into those leaves and into those branches, and how great the contrast is between the dark below, or the warm below, and the cool above." And he goes on and on. And to me, I was just mesmerized. Not so much, definitely mesmerized by how, alert he was to everything, and how everything was always speaking to him almost. The world was awake in his eyes. He always was studying and connecting and conversing with the world in a way that I literally had never seen another adult do, and another person do, period. And And not just that, but the fact that here he was at 60 some years old, had been a professional artist his whole life, and yet he's seeing the world as though it was brand new, being born right before him that morning and that night before and the day before at the workshop, and so on and so on and so on. Every day for him was this awakened sensory conversation with the world, a world of discovery. And I looked at him, and yes, I was in awe of like the revelations about the simplest things that I was seeing, but I was mostly in awe of the fact that here was a man whose entire life had been about studying the visual world, and here he was seeing it as though it was brand new, in a way that was deeper and richer, more profound than anything I'd ever seen before with anyone I'd ever seen it before. And to stand with him was to see the world with new eyes. And I think that's quite literally why you walk into a gallery and you say, I'm going to buy that painting. Is because for a moment there, as you look at that painting, you get to stand with the artist and see the world with new eyes. And I think that as an artist, that's the goal, right? Is to awaken your senses so that the world itself is alive and speaking with you, and you are interacting with it, and it's transformative just to take a step out your door. That to me was an art lesson and a life lesson, and it's why to me he was such a great teacher. You know, I've recently started getting back into doing my first show in a while. We had a really kind of rough couple of years with family. We had a new baby, a new house, a home renovation, and some sick family, and we just had a ton of things on our plate. I just got back into having an art, big show again, and kind of scheduling that stuff, and starting to do social media again, and make my art life come back to life, right? That kind of public side of it. And one of the things I noticed is how insular a lot of artists are, especially they have sometimes little communities established, which makes sense, like friends and connections and camaraderie and all that, which is really, really great. But so much of that looks so little like my mentor. My mentor was a man who shared everything. And his colleagues would say, "Oh, you're crazy, you can't share that, you're giving away all your secrets." And he would say to them, "No, you're crazy. Art is for the community, it's for all of us. And so what if I tell them, my tips and tricks? Because that'll just make them better, and by extension, it'll make me better, it'll make all of us better. And what good is something if we can't share it?" And that was literally how he walked through life. He didn't hoard anything, and his arms were open, his heart was open, and his heart was full of laughter. He was always goofing around and playing around. And talk about a mentor, someone who helps you see the world not just as an artist but as a human being, right? I literally think of him every day, and when I talk about him like I'm with you right now, it makes it alive for me again to be with him, and it moves me. It gives me goosebumps. It makes me feel like I'm remembering something very, very real and good. It's something that I have to always remember, and it's a big part of what being an artist is for me. And just thinking about all the things that he embodied. Let me take a quick break from all that and just talk about this. Like, do you see how this little rabbit is kind of an embodiment of some of the principles he was talking about? There's skylight reflecting down into these upward-facing shadows in this part of his little rabbit's torso, or the forehead and stuff. And then these downward-facing parts of the belly, I'm just starting to grab and pick up some of these warm, earthy colors of reds, oranges, browns, and reflect them back up into the belly. And I can take my palette knife or my custom brush that I made in Artrage, just custom brushed, and I can just kind of knock it around and blend it. And it's awesome. And so I'm just kind of grabbing and blending with the kind of the local color of the shadow. Depending on which direction part of the body is facing, I can get a lot of really cool stuff going on with the light and the interaction of the light. The shadows are never black. They're full of color and full of life. So it's really, really, really cool to be able to kind of reflect on that story as we talk about reflected light and think about Ray and think about what makes all this stuff work. One of the things is just kind of a technical thing. This custom brush I made, I like it, but one of the downsides is everything becomes so soft, and you can see the edges. I'm losing the edges, the hardness of the edges, and so I can go back in with like a different tool. And here I'm just going to use the pencil tool. Just being, I guess, maybe a little bit lazy. I don't want to resize my oil brush, but it could just as easily use the oil brush and just kind of knock it down in size a little bit, and then I can come in and way back in there. Okay, and then I grab a dark color, and then I can come back and just knock in some of these edges to give it a little bit more pop in there. Maybe a little bit too much, but you get the idea. So some of the custom brushes are awesome, but you have to be careful. It's hard to get a brush that can do it all. So you sometimes have to bounce around. If you use one brush too long or too often or for everything, your painting's going to all have the same edge quality throughout, unless you have a really fantastically good brush, which is possible. You can create a brush that does kind of do it all. It can give you soft and hard edges. It can blend well, but it can also pop depending on the stroke weight that you use and stuff. But it is hard. So the ones that I've made so far are good, but they're not great. And so I do have to kind of bounce around a little bit. Right now I'm just giving the eye a little bit more a feeling of roundness. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is grab from these cool skylight reflecting shadowy colors, and I'm just going to put a little ribbon of light right through the middle there. It kind of starts to work toward the top of the eye, giving a little bit of that skylight reflection to the eye. I want the eye, especially that wet part of the eye, to feel like it's kind of gooey and it's reflecting the world around it, right? Then the downward facing part, I'm going to grab some of this earthy kind of sap green or like army green color and just drag that across the bottom of the eye and get some of this fall color reflecting back up into the eye down here. And my reflections are not going to be as bright as the leaves themselves, because I still have to remember, well, this is in highlight. This reflection, even though it's a reflection, is still in shadow, and I'm going to keep it in shadow by not letting the value or the lightness, the darkness of it get too light. I'm going to keep it still in shadow. So you can see that it looks pretty good now, and that eye has really come to life. And there we go. Again, this is just an illustration going to be from my son, and having individuals to make artwork for is very special. Having venues and individuals to work on things for is great. You know, a friend of mine say, "Oh, you have this big show coming up. Are you be nervous about the deadlines?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm confident in my ability to work at whatever rate I need to get it done." But more than anything, I'm just excited because I go from just the act of loving to paint, which I do. I just love to paint. I can just sit around and paint all day, and I often do. You know, the family will watch a movie or whatever. I'll have my tablet upstairs and just painting in my lap. And I don't care what I'm painting. You know, it can be a piece of fruit, or it can be some rabbits, or it can be a portrait or whatever. But I just love it. And there's something very different about just painting, and then painting with a purpose, with a particular audience or moment, an event in mind. And so I love that. That's something that's really cool, and it's something that I think we need to have as artists is specific purpose sometimes, like knowing that our work is going to be out in the world, and that you're going to have lights on it, and there's going to be an audience, and you got to think about, well, what do you want to say to them, and what is that your heart's been wanting to talk about. And I love that part of it. And it's, you know, I love, of course, the more like diary style, journal-y, sketchbook kind of just doing it for myself kind of thing. But there's something about the conversation that happens when it goes public that I also love. And so I'm excited about that. it's a wonderful discipline because there's so many facets. You know, it can remain just kind of like this, where I just paint something for my son, and that's good enough. But I do love personally when it goes into that more public space and I get to think about a little bit different scope. But for the purpose of this video, just a short, almost, I guess more storytelling than painting time, but I hope you did see the evolution of this little guy. And something I want to point out is this little rabbit started the same way as this one and this one, and all I'm doing is turning these light sides and dark sides, the suggestion of a nose, the suggestion of an eye, suggestion of ears, and I'm just turning that into a more complex picture based on the light, the shadow, the reflected light coming from the ground and the sky, coming from above, below, colliding with wet surfaces, soft surfaces, hard surfaces, deep shadows, cast shadows, occluded shadows, you know. And I think as we kind of work through all that, that kind of complexity of, oh, how do I make something look realistic? It starts to demystify, because again, like I said, we're always just learning to see, and what we're learning to see is relationships between hard edges, soft edges, warm colors, cool colors, round shapes, square shapes, lights and darks, things that are big and small, things that are rough and smooth. So just these contrasts of basic elements of design. And as we study those very basic things, wonderfully complex and beautiful phenomena start to happen. And you know, here's one of those things. You start to feel the almost like glow of the fur as the light's penetrating and bouncing through it. And I can push that and make it even better. You start to feel the fleshy part of the ear as the light might be coming through that, and I can push that and make it better, and so on and so on. So I'm going to stop here for this part one of this video, but for part two, I'm going to get in here and make this rabbit look just awesome and make him kind of exaggerate his gesture, that kind of jump, and make the bow feel like it's pulled taut and about to be released, and that energy of his pose feel very, very vibrant. So check it out next time, but thanks so much for hanging out today, and this is Artrage 5 out there. All right, take care.